life before now. I am going to redo a painting. Now, what I mean is, I'm not going to do on the painting, I'm going to redo the subject. So, enough of the mystery. I did this several days ago. Many of you, perhaps some of you, one of you watched me do this Statue of Liberty. I walked you through the whole process, the whole thinking, and I'm fairly happy with this painting. I've got a lot of really nice comments on it, especially on Facebook. And but I'm not completely happy with it. Now, I plan to sell this painting, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think it's a fine painting, but it's not what I'm aiming for. And I am going to treat myself here, I'm going to treat myself rough. I'm going to treat me as if I were my own college professor. Because I'm going to tell myself, okay, do it again. That's all. Just do it again. And what that means is I'm going to paint the Statue of Liberty again. Now, I've picked out a slightly different photograph. Very similar idea. Very similar idea. Oh, hang on. Let me get myself turned on. Okay. Very similar, slightly different angle. So I'm not doing exactly the same, but you get the idea. It's almost exactly the same painting. Now, here's why I'm doing it again. The last two paintings I've done were the Statue of Liberty and Salisbury Cathedral. In both cases, I started with large, what I'm calling contrapunctal, counterpoint, counterfoil marks to the final image. Okay, it's easier to describe, easier to demonstrate than it is to talk about. So here it is. This image is almost entirely green with a little bit of blue. That means the counterpoint shape that I'm going to put on this canvas is going to be reddish, I don't know, red yellow, red purple, red magenta. It is going to be red magenta. That's arbitrary. Now, how do I know it's going to be red? Well, because the image is green, and I want to do, in a sense, the opposite of what's in the image. Now, I'm assuming you can barely see that up there on my canvas. That's what I'm on my easel. That's what I'm looking at right now. So I've got a strong vertical, very strong vertical here, and a circle here, and of course a radiating. But this whole thing is roughly in the shape of a box or a square. Okay, so all those are things that I do not want to do with these marks. I don't know if that's making any sense to you, but I'm not going to do a vertical here or a round here radiating or a box. No, I'm not going to do any of those. The point of this is to do opposite color and opposite shape. So I see the greatest opposite in this image is a diagonal. Let me do that again. Diagonal there, a vertical here. That vertical is kind of parallel to that, isn't it? So that's not so. Another diagonal here. Let me go ahead and paint the edges too, so I don't have to come back and do that later. Now, in 3 minutes, 90 seconds maybe, I want there to be a good composition. So I think, okay, slightly different color here. As I say, if I got run over by a Mack truck, the proverbial Mack truck, I hope it's only proverbial. If I got run over by the proverbial Mack truck at this point in the painting, I would want the art public to say, oh, isn't that a shame? Is that too much to hope for? They'll say, isn't that a shame? He had a nice painting going when he went. Okay, that's the point. Isn't it a shame? That part's optional. But the part that is not optional is and of course I'm being silly in a way, but I want this to be a good painting. Got it? And I think it is. I mean, if this were my style, I could sell this. Someday maybe I will. Maybe this will become my style. I'll sell these for $10,000 each. And ask me if I could sell this for 10 grand, would I? Are you kidding? Yes, in a heartbeat. Oh, Dan, where's your dedication to your art? Well, that's important too, but it's not nearly as doesn't match my dedication to paying my bills. Okay, so while that is drying, I have time here to start doing some drawing. Okay, now all of this drawing. By the way, I did take time to make sure that the ratio of this photograph is the same as the ratio of this canvas. Boy, I've learned that lesson the hard way over and over and over again. If your canvas is not the same ratio as your reference, boy, you can really get screwed up. And you've heard me say before that all the marks that I'm making right now are rough estimates. Somebody let a dog out in here. Rough. All the marks I'm making right now are estimates, and I'll be changing my mind on virtually every one of them. I'm already changing my mind already. Now, I was also not terribly happy with my portrait, with the drawing I did of the Statue of Liberty. Let me show it to you again. I mean, I think it's good enough for public consumption. I don't think anybody else, any non-artist, would be able to see what's wrong with that. I hope nobody can see what's wrong with it, but it's I wasn't completely happy with that, so I do hope to do better this time as well at rendering this green portrait of this Lady Liberty. Okay, I don't want to take this too far again, because these are all just wild guesses, estimations of where these lines should go. So I want to leave myself with lots of wiggle room. I don't want to lock in too quickly. That can happen sometimes, by the way, if you put down a mark or like a face or a feature, like a nose or a mouth or an eye, something, and you fall in love with that shape, that nose, but it just, sadly, the nose is, an eighth of an inch off or quarter inch off to the left or the right. Many times you're so in love with the nose, the shape, that you refuse to move it that quarter of an inch. And boy, that's another lesson learned the hard way. I'm assuming that my, can I do this while you guys are here? No? Okay, I was going to say, good, hello, Edward. Yes, thank you, Edward. That's exactly correct. That is the order that I need. Okay, what Edward just said, for those of you who missed it, he said, love the colors, don't lose them, that's an order. Thank you, and that is precisely why I am doing the same painting over again. Because I started out the other painting with very much the same kind of feel, and I loved this color, but in the course of doing the painting, somehow I managed to lose it. I'm going to move you down just a little bit. Sorry about the jerking there. Okay, so Edward, thank you. I appreciate the order. You are right on target with that. So I want this, since I've never done this before, same painting, basically identical painting, 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row, whatever it is, 2 days apart, I should say. And I want to be radical with myself, because I don't want to do what I did last time, which was I lost all this initial lead. So I'm going to be more radical with myself and try not to lose it this time. Okay, I need that to dry a little bit, so I'm going to take a really quick break. I will be back in just a few minutes. Thanks, and hang on, I'll be back in All right, welcome back. Everything here now is dry. so I can do glazes on top of this. Hello, Bobo Pop. I don't know who is your God, but I'm glad that you're here with us anyway. um, so layer number 2, here's where I'm beginning to modify, restrain myself. In years past, I'm mixing up a green, some kind of green. And I would have gone over much of this thinking, well, this plus green equals something nice. But I'm learning that no, when I cover this up, it gets too covered up. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to limit my application of green. I am going to do some green, but I'm not going to cover as many what I call square acres. I'm not going to cover as much area. I'm going to continue to let the initial splash, that red X, show through quite a bit, which is hard because I want to cover all this up. But Edward kindly gave me orders not to do that. So I'm trying to obey. Okay, there, I'm done with the green. So that's a very restrained, because I've still got a lot of this initial pink, red, pink, orange still showing. So that's a little departure. Now I think I can go ahead without waiting for that to dry. I think I can do some blue, but exercising the same restraint. Don't cover up too much. And don't cover up too much of the green either. So it's both of them. So I feel like progress for me as an artist is right in this area somewhere. It's in the area of don't cover up so much. Use more restraint when applying the second, third, and fourth layer of glaze. So you guys are watching me. We're going to find out together if I'm right about that. Okay, so once again, see, I'm leaving this little bit of orange right up there, where right here I would have, yesterday, I would have covered that up, understanding, rightfully, that one glaze plus another color on top of it makes beautiful colors, and I'm right about that. Orange or pink with blue on top of it makes some really fascinating colors, but also what happens is each earlier layer gets diminished, and I've just been discovering in the last couple days it gets diminished too much. So I'm trying to hold back. At the moment, it's kind of a gigantic mess, isn't it? Okay, but I'm gonna reserve judgment. I'm gonna try to hold back and say, okay, nah, don't get too upset. Now, I know what I can do. I can do some, while that dries, let me do my second. How do you choose your color combo? That is a great question, not easily answered. Well, I'll answer it the best I can. And I don't know if you were here at the very beginning of this painting a few minutes ago. I'm assuming not. The reason I chose the red, fuchsia, magenta, red, and a little bit of orange, and yellow, the reason I chose that is because it's the complementary color, the opposite of green. The opposite of green and blue is red and yellow. So that's why I chose that color. Then the second layer is green. That's realistic color, local color, and blue, same thing. So that's how all of those colors were chosen. First of all, opposite and then consonant or realistic. Now that your question about how do you choose which color when becomes even more intuitive later in the process. Trying really hard to get this drawing accurate and also irritating myself by having to draw with one hand. So because I'm holding it with the other. I wish I had something to hold this right here, but I don't, so I'll just have to try to get by. What I'm going to do in a minute is hold it with my right hand and draw with my left. For those of you who don't know, my drawing with painting and drawing with two hands has become a pretty major principle for me. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hang up on you guys again. I'm going to leave you alone for a while because this is a little bit too boring, I'm afraid. You can barely see. Well, I should zoom in anyway, shouldn't I? You can barely see these lines that I'm making, right? It's just... So I'm afraid it'll be a little bit too boring for you. So I'm going to hang up, finish my drawing in pencil. By then, of course, all this green and blue will be completely dry. And the next thing I'm going to do after that will be a layer of white. I'm quite clear about that. I'll let you watch me for just another minute or so. A real important principle. Good. I'm glad it's not boring, Bobo. Thank you. Appreciate that. Another important principle I state often, let me restate it again here, is that, of course, I did my first drawing with brushes in green paint. So that's what all these lines are, and these lines that you see here, right? That stuff. The important principle here is when you come back and do your next drawing, you don't believe those earlier lines. You don't trust them. You put your weight down on them. You use them. Well, thank you, Harrison. I appreciate that, you guys. Good. Well, I'll you're being so nice. I'll let you watch it just another minute then. And then I'll do this drawing in peace and quiet on my own. But it won't be. I'll be back in just a little while. I certainly would expect to finish this painting today, this evening. It's almost 4 o'clock where I am. But I've got a meeting that I need to leave for about 6, so I'm not sure that I'll be finishing it at all. So be careful when you do the drawing. Now, next time around, when I come back to draw the next time, whatever medium I'm in, paint or pencil or whatever, likewise, I won't trust these pencil lines. Does that make sense? That's really important for some of you to understand that if you follow my philosophy of allow the image to emerge slowly out of the mist, that means with each subsequent drawing, each subsequent layer, you don't trust the previous layer. You make judgments about the previous layer, not judgments like, oh, shaka, raka, raka. You know, not those kind of judgments, but judgments where you're deciding whether, you know, this or that line are in exactly the right place or not. And most of the time, of course, your judgment is, oh, no, they're not. So you make corrections all the way through to the very last layer of the painting process, which for me is about somewhere between 10 and 15 layers later, 10 or 15 stages. So that's how many chances I get to try to get this drawing correct. Okay? So thank you all for being nice. Now, I am wondering if I am able to see your comments. Forgive me, I'm looking at I've got my video playing on another phone because I want to see if I can see your comments, and it doesn't look like I can. Forgive me, this is technical experimentation here. So I don't know if I missed some of your comments or not. That's one of the weaknesses of using my fancy new Mevo camera. Now it doesn't look like they're showing up. Now, forgive me. Let me before I leave, let me see if I can do the same thing here. Nope, I can't. Do I have any recourse whatsoever? Nope. Forgive me again. I know I'm jerking you all over. Nope. Okay. 9 people watching. Thank you, Harrison. Love your art. It's looking great. I'm hoping my art skills would be. Hey, I hope yours will. I'm hoping the exact same thing, Harrison. Appreciate it. Okay, thanks, folks. I'll be back in just a little bit. Thanks, Bobo. Welcome back. Once again, I've been instructed not to say anything too important in the first couple seconds. That shouldn't be hard. While people catch that I'm here. Okay, let's get going. So I've finished the pencil drawing, and I am ready to start doing now some white highlights. So once again, I want to be very careful that I don't overdo this phase, because this opaque paint, of course, opaque color is where you cover up the most, is responsible for covering up the most material details underneath. So yes, I want to be very careful that I don't go too far with this white, that I keep it very restricted. I'm saying this to myself because I'm trying to talk myself into it. But look, the bridge of the nose here is going to be one of the brightest spots in the whole painting. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Again, I'm assuming you can see my head. Just barely. You can see my face, can't you? Turned upward, looking toward the heavens, from which cometh my help. Hoping, and I'm being facetious, I'm looking at my reference up there, hoping that I can accurately draw. Now, of course, don't you, that I could save myself some time and quite a bit of grief by doing any number of things, projecting, tracing, gridding, carbon paper, any number of things I could do to make sure that I get this Statue of Liberty face accurate. In fact, there's a mistake I'm realizing right now. Let me make a mark so I don't forget that later. This side of the forehead needs to come down quite a bit, right there. And likewise this side. So there we go. There's a correction. Therefore, the top of the hair comes down. Okay. I was going to say something, wasn't I? Oh yeah, I could cheat, couldn't I? Quote unquote cheat. And of course, people are saying all the time, "Oh, there's no such thing as cheating." Well, here's what I mean. Here's my definition. Cheating, quote unquote. First of all, it's legal. Yes, absolutely. Anything is legal to get the job done. One of my favorite illustrators is Drew, D-R-E-W, oh, good grief, I'm drawing, begins with an S. He's probably the most famous movie poster artist, Struzan. Drew Struzan, S-T-R-U-Z-A-N. He did the Indiana Jones movie posters, the original ones, and a whole bunch of other stuff. Okay, so he's probably, again, probably the most famous. There's several fabulous movie poster artists, but you know, if you had to name one, it might be him, might be he, and he he cheats completely all the time and is somewhat defensive about it, if I may say so myself, but rightfully so. I mean, he says, hey, the job is to get the job done. The job is to get on the canvas or on the illustration board, as the case may be, the marks and the illustrations that make for a great poster, make for great art. The way that I do it is immaterial. So that's what Drew Struzan says. And of course, he's got a very good point, and he's still my favorite movie poster artist, in spite of the fact that he, quote unquote, cheats now. And David, it's so funny, I'm so terrible with names when I'm painting. David Hockney, English artist, wrote a book several years ago now, 10 years ago maybe more, I don't know, where he made the bold and, to many people, a scandalous assertion that most of the great classical artists of through history, through the Middle Ages and so on and so forth, quote unquote, cheated, that they used camera obscura and other photomechanical means. Don't let the word photo mess you up there. David Hockney, what's the name of that book? You can find it just by Googling David Hockney, artists, camera obscura. David Hockney, camera obscura. You'll find his book. Caused quite the ruckus. A lot of people were quite upset at the assertion that many of their favorite painters, like Jan Vermeer and Frans Hals and a whole bunch of other people, I don't know that Frans Hals, that name in particular, but people of his ilk, that they cheated, that they used photomechanical means for capturing their images. In fact, there was quite a kickback against David Hockney, and a lot of people said, no, you're wrong. But I got to tell you, if you watch one of his lectures, presentations, I mean, the evidence, to me, is overwhelming. There's really no doubt that he's correct in his thesis. Anyway, so it's legal to cheat. There's a big but coming, okay? Brace yourself. There's a big but coming. It is legal to cheat. However, every time you cheat, I like to say it this way, your brain is shrinking. Of course, I'm being silly about but your skills are deteriorating. I'm not being silly there, I'm being literal. Every time you cheat, your ability to draw from seeing goes downhill. And I experienced this firsthand when I worked as an illustrator for many, many years. And when I discovered that my ability to draw and copy were worse after 10 years of illustration than they were before, I was scandalized. Positively, the alarm bells went ringing big time. I do not like the idea of my skills deteriorating. I don't know about you. I don't like skills to go down. I like skills that go up. So that's part of the reason why I try not to cheat most of the time. Another part of the reason why I try not to cheat most of the time is that many times the inaccuracies that creep into my drawing are, and I know this sounds whatever, what's the word, something, but the inaccuracies that creep into my drawing are often better than the accuracies. I'll go to my, as you maybe know, I do a lot of architectural paintings, and I have discovered over the years that I tend to make most of my buildings a little bit too skinny and too tall. In other words, I squeeze things this way. That's a mistake. I make the mistake of squeezing them this way. But I've also come to the conclusion that my mistake is better than the reality, that the increased drama of a condensed building is actually slightly better than the reality. So that's one of the reasons that, like in this case, that I'm going ahead and cheating, not cheating, is because it may be that my mistakes are better. Now, can you handle any more? Here's another problem with quote unquote cheating. And again, I've done plenty of it, and I will do plenty more. So again, yes, it's legal. Don't worry about that. Don't leave a comment and say, oh, but it's okay. It's not cheating. These are my definitions. By my definition, it is cheating. That is, you're using any means whatsoever to capture. You know, everybody does it. So in a way, it's not cheating. Drew Struzan, famed best movie poster artist of maybe all time, cheated like crazy, projected everything basically. By the way, you watch the videos yourself and you'll say, oh, well, he didn't really trace everything. Anyway, the other thing is that when you allow yourself the luxury of projecting, tracing, gridding, measuring, even with the, you know, what do you call the scalpel thing? That's not the word. You know what I mean? The two pointy thing. I have a couple over there. Oh my goodness. Even that. The downside of doing that is that, okay, listen to me now, I'm going to say it. You remove the struggle, the appearance of struggle from the drawing. Let me say that again. If you cheat, trace, project, grid, anything whatsoever, you have a tendency to remove all, I'll say it a little more accurately, you have a tendency to remove all evidence of the struggle from your painting. In fact, that's one of David Hockney's best proofs that these, like Hans Holbein, cheated a whole bunch because there's no struggle in his lines. His lines are perfect, whatever he's drawing, and not in many cases his lines are, the very first line that he puts down is perfect, and there's no corrections, no revisions. There's boom, he puts it down. And of course, some people like to think, well, that's how good he was. That just shows how good he was. And David Hockney has a whole bunch of proofs to show that that is not the case, that in fact he was indeed tracing. But anyway, I digress. So what's wrong with leaving the struggle? Well, it's what you're actually seeing is reflected in my paintings right now. The fact that I put one line down and then discover it subsequently, discover it at a later minute to be erroneous, and I make a correction and I put another line down. So you see that like all over the place. Here, let me zoom in. Up here you see it. Okay, where is the top of this crown? Is it here, or is it here, or is it here? I think those are both for the top. No, actually, it was at one time, it was down here. Yeah. So it's either here or here or here. All those are guesses on my part to try to estimate accurately where the correct place is for those lines. Well, here's an interesting thing. This is a little bit, you know, kind of spooky metaphysical, but try not to get too weirded out here. There is a strange kind of beauty in the struggle, in the search, in the attempt to get things right. In other words, and there may be as many as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines here in an attempt to figure out which one is the right one. Well, the 4 erroneous marks, and maybe more than that by the time I'm done, the 4 erroneous marks add to the beauty of the final painting. Does that make sense? Then making colors stronger or brighter must be cheating too. Yeah, I know. I'm only restricting the discussion of cheating is to methods we use, and again, they're all legal. Absolutely, nothing wrong with cheating. You just have to remember that every time you do it, your ability to render, to see and render diminishes. That's all. Um, so I contend that the struggle that is manifest in a painting like this, the fact that I changed my mind here and there. Yep, thank you. Proportional divider. Thank you, Renee. Exactly. Um, that the attempt to get things right, the hunt and peck, the accidental errors are actually, and here's where, here's where it can get, too spooky or metaphysical or something. Like it's as if that attempt is more true to the human condition. Yeah, I agree. Drawing is freedom, and the mechanical methods sometimes can tend. Now, there's ways to get around it. Don't get me wrong, but they can tend to diminish that sense of freedom. It's very similar to when people come up to me late on painting on the street, and they come up to me and say and see a painting that's fairly finished, and they'll often say, "Oh, did you start out with a sketch?" And those of you who've seen me start out now understand kind of how funny that is. Because not only did I not start with a sketch, I mean, I started with about as radical anti-sketch as you can possibly get, right? A big orange-yellow X through the middle of this. Yeah, I agree, Renee. That is exactly right. I think the struggle makes the work mine and mine alone. In fact, in the near future here, I don't know if, Renee, I don't think you jumped on board with us yet. A couple months ago, I had a lot of fun doing some illustrations in the style of C.F. Payne, Chris Payne, P-A-Y-N-E. You can go back, it was either October or November, and I had a ball imitating his style. And at the same time, I was toying with the idea of imitating Drew Struzan, who I've just been talking about in the last few minutes. Now, I plan in the next couple of months, sometime, I plan to do some illustrations unabashedly in the style of Drew Struzan. Now, a lot of people do this. Frankly, I'm sounding arrogant, but most people don't do it well. I'm going to try to do it well. I'm going to try to do it so well that people won't know that it's not his work, unless they look at the signature or whatever. One of the interesting things about that, speaking of Renee, about it being my work alone, is that one of the things that is surprisingly easy about copying somebody like Drew Struzan is the fact that he projected and traced. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. When I do my Drew Struzan imitation, I'm going to project and trace like crazy. Whoops. Now, this is where I want to be really careful, isn't it? This is where I don't want to cover up. I'm going to see if I can remove some of that just a little bit. I want to be careful not to cover up too much of that beautiful pink initial splash. So, ironically, I can copy Drew Struzan more easily than I can copy Rembrandt, because, by the way, Rembrandt did not cheat. That's one of the fascinating findings about David Hockney's research in his book. Of all the great painters through classical. Renee, our Canadian. Yes, it would be, a hockey game would be boring if all you saw was the goals. That is great. I love it. And perfect that you're Canadian, as I am as well. Well, I used to be Canadian, but I still wear my Canadian heritage with great pride. So I will be able to copy Drew Struzan partly because I'm going to cheat the way he cheated, and I'm going to project the way he projected. So yes, it would be quite difficult, relatively speaking, for someone to copy this painting right now, because it's full of hiccups and second thoughts and so forth. Yeah, which serves to make it sort of my style, if you will. Okay, now I want to be very careful here that I don't cover up too much Again, too much of the red. That's the reason I'm doing a Statue of Liberty for the second time in a week, is because the last time I did it, I was disappointed at how much of the initial splash, I tend to call it, disappointed at how much of the initial splash I covered up. So, Renee, I have never known anybody that lived in northern British Columbia. I mean, that sounds like the end of the world from here. It sounds fascinating. The most beautiful place I've ever been in my life. Maybe? No, yeah, the most beautiful place I've ever been in my life is southern British Columbia. I can't imagine what it's like in northern British Columbia. I mean, I take it you're in the depths of Arctic winter by now, is that right? Oh, so you're already coming out of winter. Well, theoretically. The days are getting longer is my point. Even up there. By the way, I am sitting down right now. In between one of the last shots, I decided I'll be able to retain focus better if my legs aren't hurting. So I'm kind of painting the lazy way right at the moment. That is sitting down. Sitting down is cheating. Say it ain't so. Oh my. No, I'm kidding. Sitting down is not cheating. But the energy does flow better when you stand up. Until your legs hurt, and then the energy does it. That doesn't matter anymore. Okay. Oh, I see. I've got a little mistake here. See, another mistake. I need to move this up. Okay, I've babbled on long enough, I think. Now, very often in my painting, at this point, I would do another layer of acrylics and then another layer of white. But because of today's quest to let more of that initial stuff show through, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to transition to oil. Let me zoom in just for a minute, can I? Look at some of this stuff. Look at this pink here. Isn't that lovely? And the pink here. I mean, on a green Statue of Liberty, why would this be pink? There's no logical reason for that. All we know is that our eye tends to go Twitter-pated. Our eye gets all Twitter-pated at the beauty of this. So I'm quite happy. Look at purple up here, green here, and that's sky. So again, I'm sort of preaching at myself. I'm saying here, now Nelson, you knucklehead, don't you dare destroy all of that. So we're going to see if I can avoid being a knucklehead and obscuring all these gorgeous colors. Okay? Quick break. I'll be back in a few minutes proceeding with oil. Thanks so much, you guys. Hello, welcome back. So if you missed this episode so far, I did a big, what I call counterpoint or counterfoil image. Big fuchsia, red, and yellow X, sort of. Why red? Because the subject matter is green, and I want to be counter to that, opposite to that. Thus the word foil, if you know that sense of the word. Not tinfoil. Foil is counterfoil. So I did the big red X, I'm calling it that. Then I did drawing with brushes and blue-green paint most of the time. Then I did green and blue glazes. I was very careful not to wipe out too much of the first color. Then I did drawing in pencil, then I did white highlights. Okay, and I'm switching here. All of that is in acrylics. Now I'm switching to oils. And I'm going to do oil glazes over the entire canvas. Now here's what I think I'm going to do, because I do know that this is the point at which I tend to do too much. I tend to get heavy-handed. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got liquid on these brushes. I'm, just, I'm going to do transparent liquid over, not all, but over much of this canvas. Okay, that gives me permission not to have to go over any of that if I don't want to. Does that make sense? So all of that, basically the whole canvas now has liquid on it. I don't have to do anything I don't want. Now, of course, I do want to, and I'm going to mix up a color. This is, I think this is a, now I've said it, Michael Richardson. Hang on. This is, Michael Harding, Permanent Green Light. Very, very nice color. But while I'm at it, I also want to put out on my palette some sap green, so bear with me just a second. Boy, that's a dark sap green, which is fine with me. I like it. That was Winton, Winsor Newton sap green. But let's start with this permanent green. And I'm going to start down here where I know I want just a hint of green, because right now I'm very extremely conscious of not doing too much. I think this is the layer at which I have tended to do too much, and I've lost the magic of that initial splash. Now, okay, I'm going to do that and then ask myself, okay, have I, by what I just did right then, have I obliterated too much of this pink, or have I just pushed it back enough so it's still pink, but now it looks like it could be part of the Statue of Liberty because it's got this green on top of it? What do you think? Well, here, let's do this. I've got a rag. What happens if I lift that up? How much did I cover that up? No, I think I'm safe. I think it still has a pink look. It still has that pink that I loved, but now your eye can go, oh yeah, no, that's a verdigris. That's the name of the color green, right? Copper turns verdigris in the elements. It's a verdigris statue with some kind of bizarre, hard to explain pink highlights. It is hard to explain. We're not dealing with realism here. And by the way, the last couple of weeks, you could put an overall theme over all of my painting, I believe. And that is that I'm trying to paint, I'm considering about taking a slight shift in my career. By the way, I have my Painters Forum is tonight. I can't wait. It's a monthly gathering that I lead. I lead with a very loose hand. It's not like I'm the big boss leader or anything. I just show up and tell everybody to go. But we've been doing it, some of us, for 10 years, so I love it. And I'm going to take these paintings with me and get their opinions as well. So I'm considering taking a shift in my career and painting more commonplace, and forgive me for, again, I almost choke on the words, but I'm going to say them anyway, commonplace, beautiful scenes. That's part of the reason why the other day I did Salisbury Cathedral, okay? By the way, I'm going to lift off right now because I just put green on that blue and then went, wait a minute, I don't need to put green on top of that blue. Well, yes, I do, but not as much as I did there. Sorry. So I'm painting more like this. There's hardly an image in America that is more iconic than the Statue of Liberty. Are you with me? So I'm going to make a point here. The point is, the more iconic or common or cliche, yeah, the more cliche your subject matter is, the more your treatment of it had better not be cliche. There. That is truly what I wanted to say. Now, hang on just a second. Let me go get my painting that I did 3 days ago of the Statue of Liberty. The other one. Okay? Here's the other painting that I did the other day. Yeah, beautiful. Ooh, nice. Ooh, yeah, nice. Ooh, yeah, nice. Everybody says nice, nice. Yeah, but here's what I think. And I do like it, and I hope to sell it. I'm not ashamed of it at all. It's a fine painting. But in my opinion, forgive me, I'm going to put it back over here. I'm taking that with me tonight to my painter's forum. In my opinion, it's just a little bit too mild for being such a cliche subject matter. So I won't get it again, but you can see the difference between that one and this one. This one I'm trying to break out of the conventions a little bit more than I was on that one. And here's my theory, and all my theories are half baked. Don't make no mistake. All of my theories are, I present it to you as a theory. Some of them I suspect very strongly are correct. Others I'm more loose about. This one I'm pretty loose about. I suspect, again, that the more conventional your subject matter is, the less conventional your treatment of it should be. Whew, boy. And that's precisely why I'm doing the Statue of Liberty for a second time in about 3 days. For that very reason. I felt like, okay, the last painting I did, it's the Statue of Liberty we're talking about, for goodness sake. If you can't get cut loose on that, because it's such a familiar icon, then you're going to have a hard time cutting loose on anything. Some of you are saying, but I don't understand. Why can't you just do a nice, realistic painting of the Statue of Liberty? Whew. Well, man, I don't know. Do I have the energy to get into it? But I will tell you that so far, this painting right here is so kicking the hiney of that painting over there, it's not even funny. I'm quite excited about this. It is philosophical. It's pretty deep. And it's the verbiage I usually use. Let me expand you so you can see my face. If I'm going to commence the lecture, you might as well get the full benefit of seeing the side of my face. Okay. The verbiage I usually use, it's picture, except to make the point, I don't know why, to be kind of a smart aleck about it. You know what I want to say, really. To be a bit of a smart aleck about it. I mispronounce the word on purpose. Instead of saying picture, I say pitcher. Don't know why. Just to make the point that I'm criticizing the art of painting pictures. Now, before the invention of the camera, before 1840 or 50 or 60, artists were the camera. So their job was to paint pictures. But now that the camera came along, it's the camera's job to take pictures. It's the painter's job to paint paintings. Whew. Okay? Now, and I say this with great fear and trepidation because I have wonderful friends who are wonderful artists, some of them more famous than I and more rich than I and perhaps arguably better artists than I, who paint wonderful pictures of things. So that makes me say what I'm about to say with great caution. If we are painters, why is it so important that we paint paintings, not pictures? I think I've got the energy to do this while I paint. Let me try to take you down. Okay, so here's the question. Why is it so all-fired important? If we are painters, why is it so important, in my world, in my opinion, that we paint paintings, not pictures? Again, I'm mispronouncing the word on purpose. Okay, my answer is that it's a matter of, believe it or not, it's a matter of integrity. Now, it's not like an integrity that's like immoral. It's not that kind of integrity. And it is great fun. Okay, let me give you an example. Trompe-l'oeil. Everybody knows what trompe-l'oeil is? It's a French word, T-R-O-M-P-L apostrophe, I forget how you spell the rest of it. It means fool the eye. right? Trompe-l'oeil paintings, very popular. I don't know when they were at their height. I know they were very popular in the 19th century, 150, 200 years ago, uh, and they were done before that as well. It's where the artist tries to paint so realistically that he or she literally fools your eye. Thus the term trompe-l'oeil, fool the eye. And typically a trompe-l'oeil painting includes the painting of a frame. In other words, they paint a frame trying to fool you into thinking it's a real frame, and it's great fun. I think it's a hoot, and I sort of everybody should do at least one serious trompe-l'oeil painting, or to put it another way, I haven't done a trompe-l'oeil, but everybody should do. Oh, thank you, Bobo. There we go. Oh, that's a part I can't remember. Trompe, Loeill. Thank you very much. Trompe-l'oeil, fool the eye. Everybody should do, I feel like every artist should do some super realism, if for no other reason than to prove to yourself that you can do it, and stick with it so that you can do it. You know, stick with it long enough so you succeed. Everybody should do some super realism, whether it's trompe-l'oeil or something else. Just get it out of your system. Or if you're like me, everybody should do it every once in a while. That's more what I do. As you maybe can imagine, as a traditional illustrator, I did plenty of realism, super realism. You can still see it on my website, and I enjoyed it. It's a gas to fool people, to make them think they're looking at a photograph when they're actually looking at a painting. That is a lot of fun, and everybody should do it, as I said, just to get it out of your system and for no other reason. Okay? But if you do super realistic paintings, there's something essentially lacking in integrity. You are not doing what you say you're doing. You're not painting. You're picturing. You're creating a picture instead of a painting. Now, you might feel like, well, so what's the big deal? Again, I can't prove this, but here's... And of course, the weight of the argument here is, in a sense, that all the greatest painters, in my opinion, the greatest painters through history, agree with me on this. I'm defending Rembrandt and Frans Hals and Rubens and a whole bunch of other great painters, okay, painters. What's wrong with lack of integrity? Let me give you an example. In fact, I used this in an art class several months ago, and it was just such a great example to me. Dishonest paintings, and by that I mean super realism. Super realism. Let's get rid of all the brush strokes. Super realistic paintings, and again, I say this with great trepidation because I have friends who do this, and they're good at it, and they're brilliant people, and anyway, so I'm not, but just for me, this is where I'm at, and I'm trying to struggle to explain why I prefer painterly paintings as opposed to super realistic ones, even though super realism is very fun and impressive, darn impressive. Several months ago, I was trying to teach a painting class. I used this as an introduction to a 3-day painting class. I printed off, and I can't show these to you here. Probably I'd be violating copyright if I did, but I can describe them to you. I printed off on one page, side by side, a print of a painting by Robert Wood. Now, if you don't know Robert Wood, probably you're not old enough, that's all right, and you're not American. If you were alive in the 50s and 60s, I read somewhere that like 50% of the houses in America had a Robert Wood print hanging in their living room. Now that sounds like such a ridiculous exaggeration. I'm not even willing to defend it. But it's close enough to the truth that some crazy person thought they could actually say that and not get, shouted down. So, okay, you with me? Robert Wood, insanely popular. Just Google him, Robert Wood artist or Robert Wood paintings, okay? Any of his paintings will do. And if you look him up, you'll say, oh my, yes, he was a fine painter. Living at the very same time, also popular, but in a slightly different circle, perhaps cultural circle, and perhaps a different geography. I'm not sure. Also very popular was another artist named Edgar Payne, Payne. Edgar Payne. Again, so you just Google Edgar Payne art. Now he was also popular. Here's what makes these two men a particularly interesting case study, is they lived, as far as I can tell, essentially the same exact period of history. And you could do it this way. Pull up a bunch of, go Robert Wood artist, and hit image and just look at pages and pages and pages of Google Images, right? Okay, let your soul kind of absorb Robert Wood, and you go, wow, I can't. Well, what's Dan going to say? What could possibly be wrong? These are wonderful paintings. These are beautiful. Look at that meadow. Look at that tree. Look at that barn. Look at that scene. Look at that river. Look at that lake. Look at that sky. These are beautiful. A lot of people would say, I'd give my right arm to be able to paint like this. Okay, you with me? Okay, so you've soaked in Robert Wood for a bit. Now, back out of Google and type in Edgar Payne, Payne, and again, hit the word image in Google, and let your computer screen or your phone screen or your tablet fill up with images made by Edgar Payne. Now, part of me wants to be a smart aleck and just say, I rest my case. But of course that won't satisfy many people will not be satisfied with that. They'll say, no, what do you mean? I don't get it. They're both good painters. They're both good painters. And here's where it gets hard, and it may be just too subjective, and if I'm wrong, I'm willing to be shouted down. I'm willing to let this go. But I'm trying to understand the world we live in myself. You understand? So I'm trying to understand why do the Edgar Payne images touch me at a level that the Robert Wood paintings left me cold. Robert Wood did purdy. I'm saying it that way on purpose, of course. Again, I'm being a bit of a smart ass. You know that. Robert Wood did purdy pictures. Edgar Payne did jaw-dropping, life-changing, hair-tingling, beautiful paintings. I'm going to try to describe, again, in my words, what is the difference between the two, is that Robert Wood was trying to paint a picture of a place that was beautiful and would have emotional impact on you, his viewer, because of the place that was so beautiful. Let me act out what a person enjoying a Robert Wood painting, what they say is like, oh, look at that old barn. Isn't that, oh, it reminds me of when I was a kid. It reminds me of when we took this trip. It reminds me of, and then they name a place in the world that they've been. It reminds me of my grandma's tobacco barn, is what I say in North Carolina. Or it doesn't remind me of any place. It's like, oh, I'd give anything to walk down that little country lane and to go around the corner at the end of where it goes through the bushes down there. You follow with me? Are you with me? So Robert Wood relied on pictures of places to tap into your emotional being. Now, Edgar Payne. He also, by the way, painted beautiful scenes. And I'm partly because of Edgar Payne. I'm on this little quest of mine. We'll find out if it's going to last or not. For me to paint more beautiful places, which, as you can see, is a bit of a identity crisis for me. So Edgar Payne painted some of the best paintings of the California High Sierra Mountains, the Sierras. Okay. But there's some subtle, and here's where some people, I'm afraid, probably will never be able to understand what I'm saying, and that's Just human beings are like that. We're not all the same, and I'm okay with that. But Edgar Payne, when he painted a picture of mountains and trees and water and sky, he was not trying to make you think about, oh, I'd love to be in the high Sierras where I could see that view. No, he was using mountains, water, sky, trees, and sky as a thinly veiled excuse to put down. Thank you, Eric. I'm glad. Okay, so somebody gets it. Edgar Payne was using he painted a lot more than Sierras, but let's just say he's painting Sierras. He used the Sierra Mountains as an excuse to slap on the canvas this color and that color and this color next to that color and this color blending into that color and this light having a sharp edge and this light having a soft edge. Do you hear me? He was using the mountains and the streams and similar subject matter to Robert Wood. He was using the similar subject matter, but it was all, I like to say, a thinly veiled excuse to slap paint down on the canvas. So I sort of feel like, and again, I couldn't prove this, I'll never be able to do this, but if some kind of intelligent life from a distant galaxy visited our planet, well, they only visited the art museums of our planet. There's a funny picture, funny thought. And they had a Robert Wood painting and an Edgar Payne painting. I mean, I'm stretching so many things here, it's not even funny. But they would understand the Edgar Payne painting because they would understand abstract, I'm assuming, of course, if they had eyes, I'm assuming they have eyes, and I'm assuming they respond to color and shape and line and so forth the same way human beings do, all of which is a ridiculous assumption, you know that. They would understand the Edgar Payne painting because it has integrity. Okay? That's a lot of words. I hope some of that made a little bit of sense to you. That Edgar Payne painted paintings, Robert Wood painted pictures. Now, I did this experiment with my 35-year-old daughter, who happens to be living in our house right now for a little while. We're loving it, by the way, and her 4 children, and her husband, and her 4 children. And when I showed her a page full of Robert Wood paintings, she said, "Oh yeah, thrift store art." She's a very bright young woman, very bright young woman. Did I say that yet? I'm really proud of her. She's a very bright young woman. And she said, "Oh, yeah, I know what that is. That's thrift store art," which I thought was a fascinating description. To her, it looked old and worn out and tired. Now, let me, at the risk of whatever, usually I love saying good things about Thomas Kincaid, and I do, and this used to be a lot more fun to talk about him before he passed away, which to me is tragic, but I'm afraid that Thomas Kincaid paintings are going to go out of style because, that's another reason. What's wrong with painting pictures? Well, the taste in pictures comes and goes rather quickly. And that's what we see in the Robert Wood paintings. Oh, I just missed somebody's comment. I'm sorry. Make that comment again. I'll try to catch it next time. Let me see if there's any way I can back up on my other phone and see what you just said. I'm experimenting. Thank you, Eric. Yes, I am absolutely, yes, I'm in oil. I went to oil early on this painting because, of course, I'm trying so hard to revise my bad habit of covering up too much of my initial splash of colors. So therefore, I thought, well, one way to avoid that is to go to oils more quickly. But yes, absolutely. This is all oils. Thanks for asking, Eric, and thanks for asking it again if that was you. By the way, if anybody out there is a techie expert and you'd love to help me with my YouTube broadcasting, I am all ears, man. There's several things. As you probably know, I'm using a new camera called a Mevo, which I like very much, which allows me to do things like this. You see me controlling it, right? Then we zoom in, and then I can zoom you over here so you see my ear, which of course makes your day. Or I can zoom out to a wide angle like that. I like all of that functionality. What I don't like is I can't go back and capture all the comments, the chats at the end of every video, which I can do if I'm just using my Droid camera. Okay, so that was a long lecture, wasn't it? What's wrong with pictures? Why are paintings better than pictures? And one of the last points I made was that the taste for pictures is shifty. It's not universal. It's very trendy. Some of you are old enough to remember the 1960s, the big-eyed people. Remember the big-eyed paintings? In fact, there's a whole movie about it now, about the scandal, because we all thought it was a man painting those, so it was actually his wife. Nathan, it does. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, it does have the vibrancy of watercolors, and I like that very much. It may, and I have wondered often, Nathan, if the reason I paint in oils the way that I do is because I was essentially a watercolor major in college, and I spent most of my illustration career working in watercolor. So I love the luminescence and the transparency of watercolor. So that's why I've carried much of that over into this. Okay, I think I'm good. Thank you, Nathan. I do too. I got to tell you, guys and gals. By the way, you want to know something weird? And Renee, I'm so glad, if you're still watching, glad you're watching. YouTube tells me that 75% of my viewers are male. Doesn't bother me a bit. Just surprises the heck out of me. It's like, really? Because 90% of my, flesh and blood live students are women. 90% women in the classroom, 75% men online. That is really funny. I've talked about this before. I must be exuding some strange thing that scares off women or attracts men. Anyway, I'm kind of happy with this, I was going to say. I am kind of happy with this. And of course I could call it done, but no, I'm going to do 2 more simple layers because it's not quite done. It looks like a little bit like an illustration right now. Oh, Eric, my preferred medium. That's easy. That's easy, easy, easy. Till I come up with something better. It's Liquin Original, the gel. Now, it's a little bit smelly, little bit, and that's what I don't like about it. There is a product out of Australia called Archival Oils, and they're not smelly. My brush is just tipped over, and I jumped like a scared rabbit. The problem with the Archival Oils, yeah, thank you, William. That might be it. Men aren't as social. They don't want to go to a class and interact with people. They just want to hunker down in front of their phone or computer. Well, hunker away, guys. It's good to have you watching. Oh, yeah, Archival Oils out of Australia. I love it because they're not smelly, but they're not a gel. So if they would make a gel, I'd be all over it. Anyway, that's enough. That's enough for medium. I'm going to take a quick break here. I'll be back shortly. Thanks, you guys, for watching. And I've got 2 or 3 more layers to go. Tell you what they are. Next one is my glow layer, my fuzz layer. Same thing. Fuzz, glow, translucent, local color layer. That's next. After that, sometimes I do another layer of pencil. It's optional. And then finally, 3rd layer is light, opaque highlights. Okay? I've got just about 1 hour to finish all this before I have to take off and go to my Painter's Forum, which is one of my favorite meetings of the whole month. So, right, welcome back. Real quick break. I am down to what I call the fuzz layer. If you want to know how many layers there are, or how many steps there are already on this, I don't know. You have to go back and count. About 7, I think, maybe 8. I don't know. Depends how you count them. Anyway. The fuzz layer, this is something I stumbled on quite by accident. By the way, almost all the good things that I do in painting happened by accident. Theoretically, we should be able to speed up that process by taking really good classes For me, that hasn't been what my journey's been about primarily. My journey's been mostly about accidental discoveries. The whole notion of doing acrylic, transparent acrylic layers underneath the oil was an accidental discovery about 20 years ago. Okay, but this is the fuzz layer. Now, I I've only been doing it about 7 months, and given today's project, today's assignment is do not obliterate too much of the initial splash. Some of you are saying, well, why? Why don't you want to obliterate the initial splash? The reason is because it was beautiful. And it is, the initial splash is a huge part of what is keeping this from sliding into a picture of the Statue of Liberty and is keeping it a painting of the Statue of Liberty, okay? And I just spent 30 minutes, just a few minutes ago, explaining what is the difference between a picture and a painting. I'm not going to repeat it here, but a big factor is these unusual and abstract colors. Yeah, by the way, Bobo, that is Bob Ross's best quote by far. Happy accidents, absolutely. I mean that is, I think, serious, good painting philosophy. Makes me think he actually was a good painter, even though because of the format of his television program, the goal of his program was not to demonstrate to us that he was a good painter. If you're an artist, you know what I mean by that. If you're a painter, you know what I mean by that. All the non-painters think he was a fabulous painter. Well, he might have been, but he never showed it to us on TV because that wasn't the purpose of the program. And I liked his program, I think, just as much as anybody else liked it. But yeah, that was his best quote. In fact, you know, it was about 15 years ago. No, wait, 2004. How many years ago is that now? 14 years ago. I had an epiphany. I realized, speaking of happy accidents, the best painting happens as an accident while you're trying hard to do something else. And I reasoned thusly. I said, well, if the best painting happens while you're trying to do something else, then why don't you always try to do something else? Which is, as a matter of fact, was the genesis of my approach to painting. That's why I paint the way I paint, is I don't try to force the painting to do stuff. I just try to create an environment where happy accidents will accidentally happen. And they do, repeatedly, over and over and over and over and over. Now, I will tell you, those who are trying to copy me, and I invite you to emulate me if you want, that's fine. But do be warned, this approach to painting also leads to several crashes. Not every painting, not all the accidents are happy. Occasionally, you have unhappy accidents. But I digress. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go back to the task at hand. So here I am doing the glow layer, which is, yep, I agree, just joy and happiness from painting. There is something about that, isn't there? Which is why I take, exception to much of modern art, whose goal is to disturb. They feel like they're not really doing their job if they're not making you upset. And I say, really? Who says? Who in the world made that rule? That is a huge part of the modern art mindset. Anyway, that's another book that I am writing. I really am writing it. I haven't worked on it much because it got interrupted for my other book, which is The Breakable Laws of Painting. I am hiring people to help me with my technical challenges even this week. And so hopefully you'll start hearing about some of these things in a more cogent manner. Can I say it that way? Okay, back to the fuzz layer. Most of what I'm trying to do here is translucent, soft edges. It could also be called the glow layer. I want it, wherever there's something really bright happening, I want it to look as though it's glowing. So really bright would be sun hitting the bright parts of the Statue of Liberty's face, right? So if I want it to look like it's glowing, that means I need to make it messy. Make the edge very soft like I just did right there. I'll come back and add some hard details in there later, but right now the task is to be messy. And also, this stage is one of the stages where I can most easily do too much and lose much of my initial splash of color, which of course is what I'm trying so hard not to do today. I find this messy painting much easier to do with two hands than it is with one. The reason, I think, is that your brain can keep up with the activity of one hand, but your brain can't quite keep up with the activity of two hands painting at the same time. So your hands are freer to do crazy things without your brain stopping them. That's the first time I've ever said it that way, but I think that's a good way to put it. And I think I just missed somebody's comment again, so if you want to make it again, I'll try to catch it this time. And there's got to be a better way for me to catch your comments. I feel real bad about that, because I do enjoy the chatting that is available on YouTube, but I don't know how to make it work better with the Mevo camera. Okay, let me zoom it. Speaking of the Mevo camera, let's take advantage of it and zoom in a little bit. Once again, on my ear, just for a moment. Soft edge, soft edge, soft edge. Okay, let me go back to what I was talking about in the last episode, if you will, before the break, where I was trying to talk about why is painterly painting, loose painting, impressionistic, or what David Lafell calls abstract realism. Why is abstract realism in so many people's minds, so many artists' minds? Why is it better? I'm not going to answer the why right now. I just want to point out that when I was honored to be juried into the Oil Painters of America National Show year before last, I went down to Dallas. There were 200 paintings, and I understand 2,500 professional, mostly, well, 2,500 good artists applied, and only 200 got in. So that was pretty elite group. A lot of really good paintings in the gallery. And it was interesting to me that most, not all by any means, some people in that group, according to whoever juried that show that year, I think it was Kevin McPherson who juried the show. No, maybe it was a committee maybe he just juried the prize winners. Anyway, most of the people in the show were even looser than I in their style. They made me look a little bit tight, and the painting that I submitted was not one of my tight ones. So that was interesting to me. It's like, wow, I kind of thought I was kind of, being radical, being kind of loose. But, so that doesn't mean I'm going to change my style to chase them. I just found that very, very interesting. Okay, I'm just about finished with this glowing business. Okay, I'm going to change gears slightly. Thank you for asking that, Nathan. Am I using titanium or zinc? The answer to that is very simple. I might be wrong, and I might be missing something. very possible that I'm missing something. But for the last 10, no, 15 years, I used to use zinc occasionally because they sold it, so I thought I should use it. I use titanium all the time. The reason is, now sometimes, people call zinc white a mixing white, right? The reason is because it's not as powerful, not as potent, not as opaque as titanium. So here's my description. It took me a long time to remember. So tell me again, what's the difference between what's the difference between titanium and zinc? Here it is, okay? Zinc is weak. You follow that? You want to hear me say it again? This is a mnemonic device. Zinc is weak. And titanium is titanium. There you go. It's all of that is a mnemonic device. So tell me, which one is weak and which one is strong? That's right. Zinc is weak, and titanium is strong, like titanium, like Mighty Mouse or something, okay? So, just on the surface, I've never figured out why people would want to buy a weak paint. If you want to use a weak paint, if you want to use a really weak paint, just fill a tube full of air. There you go, that's weak. If you want to use a weak paint, save money, buy titanium, and then add a little medium to it. Or use it thinly, scumble it. Does that make some sense? So I feel like zinc is sort of a waste of money. Like, really? Why would you buy... Like, for instance, everybody knows that when it comes to a pigmented color, let's say phthalo blue, you can buy cheap phthalo blue. In fact, some of you might find cheap phthalo blue easier to manage. That's a bad example. Okay, let's do ultramarine blue. Okay, if you buy a cheap ultramarine blue, the main difference you'll see is that it doesn't have much pigment in it. The blue is weak. You have to use a lot more of it to get the job done. Follow me? Okay, same exact thing with zinc. What is zinc? It's like titanium, except cheap. Except it's not cheap because you pay just the same anyway. So there you go. I always use titanium, and if I want a weak white, I'll make it weak myself and save money in the process. Thank you very much. So I don't have... Now, again, if there's somebody out there who has a really good reason for using zinc, let me know what it is. Again, it's traditionally often called a mixing white. But that's like, go back to my ultraviolet blue analogy. If I want a weak blue, I'll make it weak myself, thank you very much, by either scumbling it very thinly or by adding a medium to it. But if you make it a weak paint, then I just feel like you've wasted my money. Okay, let me stop here for a minute because I'm doing something that's dangerous. I'm covering up an awful lot of my initial splash. And Nathan, are you still there by any chance? Look up here at this eye, for instance. There was this beautiful blush of pink. Now it's still there, but there's less of it. Okay, I've just made a little bit more. There's less of it than there was. And I'm asking myself the question, am I screwing up? Am I covering up too much of my initial splash? Well, because I think I might be, I'm going to paint with a rag and take out some of the green that I just did. Yeah, I think I like that a little better. By the way, what I'm doing right now is sort of a cross between the fuzz layer and the final layer. It's kind of hard to... They're very similar. Just with one, you be careful to have soft edges and keep everything translucent. With the final layer, you can have hard edges, and it can be more opaque. So I'm sort of dancing a fine line right in between. And I'm doing it right now, especially with this Michael Harding permanent green light. It's a different permanent green light than I'm used to. It's not, it's different. Most of my permanent green lights are more yellow than this and less opaque than this. But I'm finding it actually like perfect for a Statue of Liberty painting. Right out of the tube, it's exactly the color that I want. That doesn't happen very often, does it? Okay, tell you what, let me zoom out, and I might take another break from you guys real quickly before but before I do that, let me say, I've got a decision to make, and every painting is different, so there's no rule here. The question is, now, do I come back and do another layer of pencil or no? I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to sit back and just take a good look at the painting and ask myself, do I want a little bit more of that pencil scratchiness? I'm not using pencil like to draw. It's not for similitudinal purposes. Making up words again. Similitudinal purposes. It's not in order to achieve realism. It's in order to achieve the abstract texture of scratchiness of pencil. Okay? And I'm actually thinking, yeah, I do actually want to use a little bit of pencil. We'll tell you what then, I'm not going to take a break. I'm going to keep right on going because I don't need to wait for anything. Once again, what are these pencils? Can you see this? Jerry's Artorama Jumbo Jet Black. Jumbo Jet Black from Jerry's Artorama. That's what they are. Okay, after this, I've got one more layer of paint to go. And it is light opaque highlights. And opaque is sort of in quotation marks because many of the highlights are actually not opaque, they're actually translucent, but I think of it as opaque. That might be enough pencil. I say that and I keep drawing, right? Oh, I know one thing I didn't do. Hang on, hold the presses. I didn't do any blue in the fuzz layer, in the glow layer. And I do want to. The glow layer, in case you haven't been with me before, it's like my typical, next to the last layer. It's what I call glow. It's soft edges, translucent, glow, and local color. That fourth point, local color. Like it's at this point that I want to start steering things toward their ultimate correct, if you will, color. And in this case, that includes the blue sky. Now, again, this layer is translucent, so it's not opaque, it's translucent. You know the difference, right? It's not transparent, it's translucent. Google the definition if you're confused by that. I don't want to bother. Okay, for instance, let's look at this corner down here. I love what's happening here, and I love that initial splash of pink. I'm tickled that it's showing so much. But this is supposed to be a blue sky. So if I simply come in here and fuzz in a little bit of blue, little bit is a key word, then our brain will tell us that this is a blue sky, even though it's got great big huge pink fuchsia colored streaks going through the middle of it. Does that make sense? So I haven't obliterated them. I have pushed them back noticeably, especially right along the edge. That's a very common trick of mine, very common strategy is do the local color along the edge. All of this down here doesn't need, can you see that? Yeah, you can. None of that needs to be, that part of the painting is done. It would probably be just a big mistake to go in there and do anything at all. Of course, after having made such a statement, I'm liable to go in and do something. But anyway, probably not. Okay? So that's what I mean by local color. In fact, I'm going to push that just a little bit more. Do you know this rule? When you're in the opaque phase, the opaque stage of painting, which for me is only the very last stage of the painting process, for me, most people paint very much more opaque than I do. For me, it's only the last layer is opaque. But when you get into the opaque, it's almost a good idea, almost always a good idea, to come back. I say come back, like I just did blue fuzz here, right? It's almost always a good idea to come back with a slightly lighter blue and re-emphasize it just a little bit. That's maybe enough right there, maybe a little bit right here. Again, I'm kind of doing in the corners and along the edges. Yep, that's good. I don't know about you, but that is sweet. Same thing up here. Now I've got this several things, and again, this is a big part of why I enjoy my painting technique. This is nuts. I didn't make this happen. I simply created an environment that allowed this to happen. What is this you're talking about? Well, let's point it out. First of all, a great big green ball right there, a dark line here, a red drip here, red streaks here, and a red streak right there. None of what I just said has anything to do with quote unquote realism or similitude. None of that is, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's the sky. You know, like if we cut this part out, I'm being facetious, silly here. Someone say, oh, I know what that is. Yeah, that's the sky behind the Statue of Liberty. Wrong. Nobody would hardly even recognize it as sky. Look, it's green with a little bit of like dirty blue, pink, red, dark line, blah, blah, blah. What is all that? Well, the answer is all that is darn interesting. That's what it is. That's why this kind of painting beats the pants off realism. Because realism or tight painting, and again, I do it, sometimes I still do it just for fun, so it's not because I can't do realism, but realism, hyper-realism, there's nothing on the canvas that the artist didn't author. Can I use it? I've never said it this way before. Can I say it again? With super realistic painting, when the painting is all done, there is not one stroke on the canvas that the artist didn't author, that didn't come from the artist's mind. Now, what's wrong with that? Well, that just simply means that the painting is limited to the artist's mind. What's wrong with that, you ask? Artists are brilliant. Why should we worry that it's limited to the artist's mind? Well, yes, artists are brilliant. But sometimes, Bob Ross, happy accidents, sometimes the most transcendent, amazing, beautiful things that happen on a canvas, and I'm going to say actually most of the time, are things that go beyond what the artist was thinking. Okay, so that's just one way to put it. Now I've just blued it all. Okay, and back a little bit. Now we ask ourselves a question, well, but we've still got this line here. And I squint and I look at it and say, yeah. Because I can cover it up if I want, or I can cover up, I've already covered up some of it. Nope, I'm going to keep it. I think it's a beautiful line. And somebody would say, well, but what is it? What is it? Is this supposed to be like a cable holding up the Statue of Liberty? What is it? The answer is, I haven't got no clue what it is. Doesn't matter. I don't care. All that matters to me is, dang, that's an interesting line. I am not smart enough to think, if I was doing realism, I would never think, I know, by golly, let's put a black line right here, coming out of the side of her head, in between the spikes. Yeah, that's a great idea, Nelson. How'd you ever think of that? You understand? None of that would have had, no inner dialogue like that at all. I am not smart enough to paint that good. I am smart enough that once I see it to go, oh, wait a minute, whoa, whoa, that is cool. I don't know what it is. It's just a line. It's a little bit of energy, a little bit of graphic element, a little bit of that mistake we were talking about earlier. Same thing, why is there pink? Why is there pink in this eye here? I'm not smart enough to, again, to play act. By golly, wouldn't it look great if we put some, kind of salmon-colored pink in the eye socket of the Statue of Liberty? Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Salmon pink in the eye socket. Why didn't we think of that earlier? Am I being silly enough for you? Of course I didn't think that. I'm not, that's ridiculous. But once it got there, I'm going, dang, that is brilliant. Are you with me? And this little child is coming out now, going, wee-hoo, this is kind of fun. I like my painting. I like it partly because it didn't all come out of my head. Some of it came from the universe somewhere else and interposed its will on my painting. And doggone it, if that isn't the best part of my painting, it's the stuff that I didn't plan on. Are you with me? So I don't force a painting to happen. I feel like a good description of my painting process is I create an environment where such accidents, happy accidents, can indeed and do indeed happen on a frequent basis. That is, if I did another Statue of Liberty painting then, right now, the accidents would fall in completely different places. There might be purple or violet or some other color in that eye socket. I don't know. And of course, you know I have lots of editorial control. Like right now especially, I'm in the last layer. I can cover up anything. For instance, there was a line right here. It was kind of a dark green line. And you can still see it, but I covered that one up a whole lot more than I covered up this one. Why? Because I'm smart. Because I have the capacity to make judgments, and I judged that this line was not as good looking as this one. The angle was wrong. It came from right here, and it felt like it felt awkward. So you can still see it, and I like the fact that you can see it, but you can't see it as well. Does that make sense? Oh, somebody out there needs to be hearing this. I hope you're getting it. I hope you're getting it. Somebody out there. Let me say it this way again: the transition from being a wannabe painter to a real painter, I think, for most artists, and this is certainly true for me, when I went through this dramatic epiphanal moment about what was in stages, but one of the biggest one was 15 years ago. So that's pretty recent, right? Pretty recent. 15 years ago, I was 48 years old. That's pretty late in life to be making major changes. But when I discovered that the best painting happens when you're trying to do something else, and said, well, then doggone, let's just always do something else. For most people, you will become a real artist when you stop painting pictures and start painting paintings. There. That's without all the fluff. Let me say it again. You will become a real artist when you finally stop painting pictures and start painting paintings. Okay, let me back up here. I need to make sure I'm not covering up too much. Oh, by the way, no, I'm not in the opaque layer. I'm in the fuzz layer, but it's pretty hard to. I'm in the local color. Remember, I thought I was done with the fuzz layer, and it said, oh, wait a minute, I didn't do the local color blue. I didn't do the. And for those of you who are new to the art world, for some reason, artists call realistic color, like roses red, violets are blue, grass is green, sky is blue. We call that local color. So if you want to sound really smart, be sure to throw that word into your vocabulary. Now again, I could couch this entire conversation in this other theme. The essence of doing good painting, the very essence of doing good painting, is making interesting marks. So once again, I'm not coloring in the lines. I'm not trying hard to, oh boy, I better paint blue sky because sky is blue, and if I don't paint it blue, it won't look like sky, so I better paint it blue. No. And I better stay in the lines. That's even worse, wouldn't it? Woohoo! Nope. What I'm trying to do mostly is make interesting brush strokes with this light blue paint on my brushes. Again, David LaFell, he's New Masters, no, is it New Masters Academy? New Light, anyway, Leffel, I believe, or maybe it's one F, Leffel. Would you say Bob Ross painted pictures? Yes, yeah, yeah. Pictures. Thanks for trying. That's a great way to spell it. I usually spell it Pitchurz, pictures. But yes, that's exactly. Bob Ross painted pictures, painted party pictures. Exactly. Now again, and I know it sounds like I'm like really ragging on him. Nuh-uh. I really liked his program. I think like most people did. And I'm not being a snob. I don't think I'm being a snob. But did he, in other words, people that imitate and emulate him and paint that way are sadly misguided. And there's some people on the internet who do that a whole lot. And they aren't ever going to be artists until they realize that the goal of painting is to paint paintings, not pictures. By the way, I'm going to paint with a rag right now. I like this pretty much, but I think it's too opaque. So I'm just going to see if I can lift some of it out. Yeah. And then even blend it into the shady side of this arm here. Now, I'm asking myself, how much do I want to do blue over here? Maybe, but I don't just assume that, right? At no point, I call this don't paint the barn. Paint the barn means, so you're painting a typical cliche farm scene. It's got a red barn in it. And you get to the red barn, so you mix up some red paint, just proceed to paint it. That's what I call. You turn off your brain and just like color in the lines. This would be another saying, a description of what I call don't paint the barn. So here in this case, it's don't paint the sky. Don't just mix up a bunch of blue paint and go and talk to your friends on the internet while you mindlessly paint too much blue. That is what you don't want to do. Okay. Oh, that was nice there. When I wiped it off. When I wiped that blue off, it came back to just, I think, a nice amount. This is way up in the corner, as you know, so I don't want a lot of energy up here. I don't want a lot of attention going to this. That red is attention enough. I'm going to paint a little bit of blue around the edge here, by the way. Whew. Oops. A little bit of electronic jungle around here. Almost done with this blue stuff. Maybe down a little bit. That's probably enough. I don't think I need to do any more down there. Okay. And I've already done the pencil. I say that, then I do a little bit more pencil. Then I erase some of the pencil. Ooh. Now hang on just a minute. That's something nice happened right there. I lifted out some overpainting and got back to a brighter underpainting, and by golly, if I don't like that. Yeah, that was a happy accident of a different kind, sort of. More literal accident. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. That was nice. Now, how about up here? Yeah. Let me pick you guys up for just a second and let you see this painting right on. So I've got one more stage, one more phase to go. Yes, Edward, you're still with me. Thank you, man. Yeah, and I'm quite happy with that. The fact that I kept the colors. Okay, all of a sudden I'm getting up. Wait a minute. I have an opportunity here. I need to leave here in, 10 minutes, 5 minutes. I need to leave basically right now. Hang on, let me get you resituated. Okay, let me tell you where I'm going from here. And I'm going to stop here. I'm going to take this to my painter's forum tonight. I'm loving the way I kept that color. Thank you, Edward. All of a sudden, I'm realizing I have a golden opportunity here. I'll try to describe it quickly. Much of this has the effect, let me talk to you directly a little bit. Much of this has the effect of a toned canvas, especially one tradition in the toned canvas world is you tone your canvas vermilion, orange red, right? Many of you are familiar with that. Well, a lot of what is happening here is reminiscent of a toned canvas, right? Yes. The difference is the tone is not even. It's different colors. There's energy and streaks and so forth, and there's more of it down here. So one of the tricks that you can do whenever you're doing the toned canvas trick, which I love, by the way, I don't do it, I do a version of it. One of the tricks you can do is in your overpainting, which for me is this next layer is the only thing I call overpainting. It's the last, light opaque highlights. You mix up colors identical to your underpainting, to your toned canvas. Let me go back to tradition. If you did vermilion and you're doing a landscape that's all blue and green, for instance, and you've got a vermilion underpainting, first of all, the number one mistake that most students make is they cover up too much of their toned canvas. But number two, if you do the toned canvas thing, you have a golden opportunity. What you do is you mix up an opaque vermilion and come back and apply some of that underpainting color on top. Oh, that's one of the greatest tricks. So all of a sudden, I just realized I've got myself set up on this painting, even though I can't finish it right now. I'm going to mix up several bits of this salmon, red, yellow, and put bits of it on top of what's here, and it's going to be, mwah, it's going to be gorgeous. So Yahoo, I am really happy. I mean, of course I could call this finished, but no, there's several things I want to do. One is I need a few lighter highlights on this face. It's a little bit too flat. And then I want to mix up some of this underpainting and hit little bits of it here and there, just little bits. And I think this is going to be one of my favorite paintings. I am so glad that I did this. Again, for those of you who missed the beginning, I'm being mean to myself. I'm doing almost the identical painting 3 days after I did the first one, treating myself as if I were a student, a college student. I would point my finger and say, "No, do it again." And this time, let more of the underpainting show through. And that's exactly what I've pretty much succeeded in doing. Let me finish here with you guys getting a more straight-on shot of that painting. That's it for today. I'm off to my painter's forum, which I love with my friends, and I'll be back tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching. Appreciate it. Please leave comments at the end, and if you haven't subscribed, do so, and tell your friends to watch me. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye-bye.